While humiliating a janitor, the wealthy woman is paralyzed upon seeing his birthmark, the same one her son had when she abandoned him 20 years ago. Emily Harrison, a millionaire businesswoman, was known for her coldness and arrogance. She ran her company with an iron fist, leaving no room for errors or weaknesses. Every day, she entered the imposing office building, her high-heeled boots echoing along the corridors of polished marble. Her employees trembled at the sight of her, avoiding any eye contact. Emily's luxurious office reflected her personality. Dark wood furniture, shelves filled with business books, and modern art on the walls. The environment was cold, impersonal, just like her. Emily spent hours reviewing reports and making decisions that impacted hundreds of lives, never showing a hint of empathy. Her routine was relentless. Emily believed that to be respected, she needed to be feared. In meetings, she cut off anyone who dared to disagree with her opinions, using sharp words like knives. Her focus was singular: success and power. The stories of her rise to the top were legendary, but few knew the true origin of her coldness. Lucas Johnson, a young janitor in his 20s, had a life completely different from Emily's. Raised in an orphanage until adopted by John and Martha, a loving couple, he grew up in a humble but caring environment. Working at Emily's company was his way of supporting his adoptive parents, who, despite their financial struggles, always gave him everything they could. Every day, Lucas arrived early at work, wearing his simple uniform and starting his tasks before most employees showed up. He scrubbed floors, cleaned windows, and emptied trash bins, always with a smile on his face, despite the humiliations he faced. Lucas was known for his diligence and kind demeanor, even in the face of many people's scorn. Despite the adversities, Lucas found strength in the love of his adoptive parents. John and Martha taught him to be kind and to work hard, values he held on to, even when treated so contemptibly. He knew his job at Emily's company was just a stage in his life, and he dreamed of a better future where he could give back all the love he received from his adoptive parents. Lucas had bigger dreams. During breaks, he often thought about studying and improving his life, perhaps even starting his own business one day. But for now, he was focused on doing the best he could in his current job, always keeping in mind the teachings and love of John and Martha. Lucas was in the main lobby, diligently cleaning the floor. He always started his day there, as it was the busiest area of the company and needed to be impeccable. The work was hard, but Lucas did his best, always with a smile on his face. That morning, Emily entered the building with her typical air of superiority. She was talking on the phone, her authoritative voice echoing through the corridors. Without even looking at Lucas, she deliberately spilled her hot coffee on the freshly cleaned floor. "Clean this up immediately," she ordered, her voice cold and emotionless. Lucas bent down to clean up the spilled coffee, feeling the humiliation burn as much as the hot liquid. As he scrubbed the floor, Emily stood still, watching him with disdain. It was then that she noticed something that deeply disturbed her. A birthmark on Lucas's arm, identical to one she knew very well. Emily's heart raced. That mark brought up memories she had long buried. Trying to maintain her composure, she quickly moved away, but she couldn't shake the image of the birthmark from her mind. Something inside her was stirred, a vague remembrance of her past that she preferred to forget. Emily returned to her office, but her mind was far from there. The sight of the birthmark on Lucas's arm had awakened painful memories of her past. She sat in her leather chair, closed her eyes, and let the memories flood her mind. As a young girl, Emily had a difficult life. Her mother was a submissive woman, and her stepfather an authoritarian man. Emily never had a happy childhood. Fear and insecurity were her constant companions. The home environment was tense and oppressive, and Emily always felt she needed to be strong to survive. Life with her stepfather and mother was not easy. He was harsh and demanding, never satisfied with anything Emily did. Her mother, on the other hand, avoided conflicts, always trying to please her husband and keeping Emily under tight control. This scenario shaped her, teaching her to hide her weaknesses and build a facade of coldness and determination. Now, seeing the birthmark on Lucas, Emily felt an urgent need to find out more about him. She couldn't ignore the possibility that this young man could be the son she had abandoned. Determined, Emily began to discreetly investigate Lucas's life. She hired a private investigator to gather information about his past, determined to discover the truth, even if it meant facing her own demons. Emily couldn't stop thinking about the birthmark on Lucas's arm. The coincidence was too disturbing to ignore. Each time she closed her eyes, the image of the mark returned to her mind, bringing up emotions she had tried to bury for years. Nights became sleepless, and restlessness consumed her. Unable to bear the doubt, Emily decided to take action. She hired a private investigator, a discreet and efficient professional, to find out more about Lucas. After a few days of work, the investigator managed to access adoption records and found documents linking Lucas to the orphanage where Emily had left her baby years ago. The information shook her, but she needed more proof. Emily then requested a secret DNA analysis. Seizing a moment when Lucas was absent, she discreetly collected a sample of the young man's hair. The wait for the results was agonizing, but finally, the laboratory delivered the report. The document confirmed Emily's suspicions. Lucas was her biological son. The shock of the confirmation was overwhelming. Emily faced a whirlwind of emotions: guilt, fear, and an unexpected hope. She knew she needed to approach Lucas, but had no idea how to do so without revealing the truth immediately. With the confirmation that Lucas was her biological son, Emily decided to approach him subtly. She aimed to establish a connection before revealing the truth. Emily promoted Lucas to a position of higher responsibility in the company, an attempt to improve his working and living conditions. However, Lucas immediately became suspicious. The promotion came without any clear explanation, and moreover, Emily continued to treat him coldly and arrogantly. To him, it seemed merely a new form of control and manipulation. His distrust grew as Emily, despite her intentions, couldn't shed her authoritarian demeanor. Emily struggled internally. She desperately wanted to be a mother to Lucas, but her personality, shaped by years of coldness and mistrust towards others, hindered any genuine attempt to connect. Each attempt to be kinder and more approachable seemed forced and artificial, only increasing Lucas's resistance. Lucas rejected her attempts to connect, maintaining distance and questioning her motives. He saw Emily's actions as manipulative, unable to comprehend the real reason behind her sudden change in behavior. The tension between the two escalated daily. Emily found herself trapped in a cycle of failed attempts to connect with Lucas, while he grew increasingly withdrawn. She knew she needed something more to break this barrier, but had yet to find the right way to do so. Lucas continued to distrust Emily. The unexpected promotion and attempts to connect, though well-intentioned, only heightened his suspicion. He couldn't understand why the woman who had always treated him with disdain now seemed interested in his life. The relationship between them became increasingly tense. Lucas's co-workers, noticing the change in Emily's behavior towards him, started treating him worse. Malicious comments and suspicions of favoritism spread quickly. "Looks like you've got a powerful godparent now, huh?" some would say, while others ignored him or even made his work difficult. The pressure and isolation intensified, making each day harder for Lucas. He felt alone and confused, not understanding the reason for such hostility. Meanwhile, Emily, desperate to connect, tried to learn more about his personal life, asking about his interests and adoptive family. But these questions only increased Lucas's distrust. "Why do you want to know?" Lucas once asked, his voice laden with suspicion. Emily, without a clear answer, backed off, feeling increasingly frustrated. She knew she needed to do something to earn Lucas's trust, but each attempt seemed to push him further away. The atmosphere at the company grew increasingly charged. Emily, accustomed to controlling everything around her, felt powerless in the face of Lucas's growing hostility and his colleagues' rejection. Each day, the distance between them seemed to grow, and Emily knew she needed to find a way to reveal the truth without driving him further away. Suspicious and weary of Emily's attempts to connect, Lucas decided it was time to confront her. He entered Emily's office unannounced, closing the door behind him with force. Emily looked up at him, surprised by his boldness. "Why are you doing this?" Lucas began, his voice tense. "First you humiliate me, then you promote me for no apparent reason, and now you're trying to meddle in my personal life. What do you really want from me?" Emily, realizing there was no longer any way to avoid the truth, took a deep breath. "Lucas, please sit down. I need to tell you something very important." Reluctantly, Lucas sat in the chair across from Emily's desk, his eyes fixed on her, waiting for an explanation. "Lucas, the reason I've been trying to get close to you is because I am your biological mother," Emily said, her voice trembling slightly. "I had to abandon you when you were a baby. It was an extremely painful and complex decision, but you are my son." The silence in the office was deafening. Lucas was paralyzed, unable to process what he had just heard. "What?" he finally managed to say, disbelief evident in his voice. "I know it's hard to believe," Emily continued, trying to remain calm. "But it's the truth. I did a DNA test to be sure, and the result confirmed it. I am your mother." Lucas stood up abruptly, his face twisted with anger and confusion. "You must be joking? My real mother is a humble, simple, hard-working woman. She raised and supported me even without means. You are not my mother. You are a monster." Emily, with tears in her eyes, tried to approach Lucas, but he stepped back. "I understand your anger, Lucas, and I deserve it. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I just wanted you to know the truth." Lucas looked at her, his mind spinning with the revelation. "I don't know if I can do this," he said. With that, Lucas left the office, leaving Emily alone, devastated and uncertain about the future. The truth had been revealed, but the path to reconciliation would be long and difficult. Lucas was shaken after Emily's revelation. He needed answers, something to make sense of the confusion in his mind. That's when he mentioned the situation to John and Martha, his adoptive parents, who suggested he speak with the former director of the orphanage where Lucas had been left. Lucas arranged to meet Sam at a discreet cafe. Upon arriving, he saw an elderly man with a kind appearance waiting for him. "Sam?" Lucas asked, extending his hand. "Yes, you must be Lucas. Please have a seat," Sam replied, shaking Lucas's hand. After some small talk, Lucas got straight to the point. "I recently found out that Emily Harrison is my biological mother. She told me a bit about what happened, but I need to understand more. Can you help me?" Sam sighed and nodded. "Emily went through a lot, Lucas. I met her when she arrived at the orphanage with her mother, carrying you. I had a chance to talk alone with Emily, to try to understand the situation that led her to abandon you. And I can assure you, what I heard was very upsetting and sad. Her life was very difficult." Lucas leaned forward, interested. "She mentioned that, but didn't go into many details. What really happened?" Sam looked at him seriously. Emily was forced to deal with situations that no child should face. Her stepfather? He was not just authoritarian. He forced Emily into relations with him. When she became pregnant, her mother, instead of protecting her, blamed her. Because her mother was probably afraid that by denouncing her husband, she would lose him. Emily was forced to leave you at the orphanage to avoid scandal. Lucas felt a knot in his throat. So her stepfather was my father? Yes, Lucas. And Emily buried all that. She became a cold and distant person as a way to survive. Her success is the result of years of effort, trying to forget the past. But the pain never went away, explained Sam. Lucas was silent for a moment, processing the information. So, all of this was to protect herself? Sam nodded. To protect herself and you as well. She never had a chance to be happy. When she learned about you, it must have been like reopening an old wound. She's trying to redeem herself, Lucas. But it's hard for her to show feelings. Lucas took a deep breath. I don't know what to do with all this. Part of me hates her for what she did, but another part understands her pain. But after she became rich and powerful, she could have looked for me. She could have tried to find me, and she did nothing. Take the time you need, Lucas. But know that deep down she always cared about you. Life just didn't give her many options, said Sam, placing a comforting hand on Lucas's shoulder. Lucas returned home feeling more confused than ever. Sam's words echoed in his mind, mixing with his own conflicting emotions. He needed to vent and sought out Martha, his adoptive mother. Mom, can I talk to you? Lucas asked, his voice laden with tension. Of course, dear. Sit down, Martha replied, concerned by the expression on Lucas's face. I met a childhood friend of Emily's today. He told me more about her past. It's a lot to process, Lucas began hesitantly. Martha held his hand. Tell me, son, what did he say? Lucas took a deep breath. He confirmed everything. The difficult life she had with her stepfather, the pregnancy, the guilt imposed by her mother. She became cold to survive. Part of me hates her for what she did. But another part, I understand her pain. Martha looked at him with compassion. Lucas, you have the right to feel that way. It's a very complex situation. What do you feel now? I feel torn. I want to hate her, but when I think about what she went through, it's hard, Lucas admitted, his voice breaking. Son, forgiveness is a process. It takes time and understanding. Emily seems to be trying to make amends. Maybe you could give her a chance, even if it's small, suggested Martha. Lucas was silent for a moment, reflecting. What if I can't? What if I can never fully forgive her? Then you do the best you can, Lucas. No one expects you to sort everything out at once. Just take it one step at a time, Martha advised, embracing him. Meanwhile, Emily was in her office, lost in her own thoughts. The revelation to Lucas had been intense, and she knew he needed space. But the wait was agonizing. Why does this have to be so hard? Emily murmured to herself, looking out the window. She thought about all the attempts to get close to Lucas and how she had failed at each one. The guilt and pain from the past weighed on her like a dark cloud. Emily knew she needed to find a way to show Lucas that she truly cared. Determined, she decided she would keep trying, even if the path was long and filled with obstacles. I won't give up on you, Lucas. Not now, Emily promised softly, feeling a renewed determination. Lucas was at a crossroads. Learning that Emily was his biological mother had shaken his foundations. On one hand, there was the hurt and anger over the abandonment. On the other, compassion for the suffering she had endured. But the hardest part was feeling that forgiving Emily would be a betrayal to John and Martha, his adoptive parents who had always stood by his side. Despite John and Martha encouraging Lucas to forgive Emily, he felt enormous internal pressure. Sitting at the kitchen table, he looked at the loving faces of his adoptive parents. Mom, Dad, how can I forgive her without feeling like I'm betraying you? Martha smiled tenderly. Lucas, we always knew that at some point you would need to confront your past. Emily may have made terrible mistakes, but she is part of who you are. John nodded. You're not betraying us by forgiving her. We raised you with love and want you to have peace. Holding on to resentment will only hurt you more. Lucas pondered his parents' words. But what if I can't? What if deep down I can never fully forgive? Then you do the best you can, John said, placing a firm hand on Lucas's shoulder. No one expects you to resolve everything at once. Take it one step at a time. Lucas knew his parents were right. Forgiving Emily would be a process, not an event. He needed to start somewhere, even if it meant just being open to the possibility of forgiveness. I'll try, Lucas finally said. I'll try to forgive her, a little at a time. Martha smiled, her eyes shining with pride. That's all we can ask, Lucas, and we'll be here with you every step of the way. As Lucas tried to process his emotions and decide his path, new problems arose at the company. A co-worker, Brian, began spreading malicious rumors about Lucas, insinuating that he was receiving special treatment from Emily for obscure reasons. I heard Lucas is meeting with the boss outside of work, Brian whispered to another colleague. There must be something more going on between them. The rumors quickly spread, increasing the hostility and isolation Lucas felt. He was pressured not only by the situation with Emily, but now also by the growing animosity in the workplace. Emily was also facing her own challenges. Some company executives, sensing her emotional vulnerability, tried to usurp her power. They began questioning her decisions and subtly undermining her authority. During a board meeting, one of the executives, Richard, spoke in a challenging tone. Emily, your recent decisions have been quite emotional. Perhaps it's time to reconsider your role in leadership. Emily felt the sting, but did not show weakness. My decisions are based on the best interest of the company. If anyone has a concrete suggestion, I'm open to hearing it. Richard smiled calculatingly. Perhaps we should form a committee to review your recent actions, to ensure we're on the right path. Richard's proposal was supported by other executives, and Emily was forced to agree. She knew she was being challenged, but was determined to maintain her position. Lucas, for his part, began to realize the extent of Brian's betrayal. He confronted his colleague in the hallway, anger shining in his eyes. Why are you doing this, Brian? What do you gain by spreading lies about me? Brian shrugged, a sarcastic smile on his lips. The truth always comes out, Lucas. Maybe you should think twice before accepting special favors. The tension at work was palpable. Lucas and Emily were fighting on different fronts, both trying to navigate a sea of betrayals and conflicts. Despite everything, Lucas's determination to try to forgive Emily remained. Fueled by the unwavering support of John and Martha, Emily knew she could no longer ignore the rumors and growing hostility at the company. After deep reflection, she decided it was time to sacrifice her pride and status to clear the situation and protect Lucas. The tension between the executives and the employees was palpable, and she needed to take definitive action. The next morning, Emily called a general meeting. The auditorium was filled, with all eyes on her, curious about what was about to be said. Lucas, however, was not present. He had taken the day to reflect and rest away from the toxic work environment. Emily took a deep breath before starting to speak. I called you all here today to clarify some important things. Recently, I have noticed an increase in rumors and suspicions about my relationship with Lucas Johnson. These rumors are unfounded and harmful, not only to me, but to all of us. She paused, looking directly at the team before continuing. The truth is, many years ago, when I was very young and immature, I became pregnant and was forced to leave my son at an orphanage. That son is Lucas Johnson. Recently, I discovered his identity and am trying to reconnect with him. The room fell into absolute silence. Emily proceeded, her voice laden with emotion. I'm not trying to justify my past mistakes, but rather to correct them. I know this may not be enough for some of you, but I thought it was important to be transparent about my story. The executives, including Richard, were taken aback by Emily's candor. Is this true, Emily? Richard asked, still trying to process the revelation. Yes, it's the truth, Emily replied, and I apologize to everyone who has been affected by the misunderstandings and the rumors. I will strive to be the leader that you all deserve. With those words, Emily stepped off the stage, leaving a murmur of whispered conversations to spread through the room. She knew she had taken an important step, but the path ahead was still uncertain. While Emily made her public confession, Lucas was in a park, sitting on a bench and staring at the lake in front of him. He needed time away from the hostile environment at the company to reflect on everything that was happening. Emily's revelations still left him confused and hurt. Lucas considered abandoning the company and Emily forever. He thought about how easy it would be to just run away from it all, to start anew somewhere else. But the voice of John and Martha, his adoptive parents, echoed in his mind, reminding him that forgiveness was a process that required time and effort. She's trying to make amends, Lucas, Martha had said the night before. Maybe you should give her a chance to show she can change. But the hostile environment at the company was unbearable. He felt the judgmental stares, heard the whispers, and saw the sarcastic smiles. They think I'm getting special treatment, Lucas thought, feeling a lump in his throat. But they don't know what's really going on. He knew he couldn't continue like this. Something had to change, but he still didn't know how. Lucas got up from the bench and began walking through the park, trying to find clarity in his thoughts. Each step felt heavier, weighed down with the uncertainty of the future. Lucas spent hours walking and thinking, trying to reach a decision. He knew that to move forward, he needed to resolve his conflicting feelings. He decided he needed to confront Emily again, but this time with a clearer mind and a more open heart. I can't run away from this, he murmured to himself. I need to face this situation head on. Lucas entered the company with a mix of anxiety and determination. As he crossed the lobby, he noticed the atmosphere was different. Colleagues looked at him differently, some with curiosity, others with sympathy. Confused, he went to his workstation, where one of the colleagues approached him. Lucas, you missed the big meeting, said Brian, the colleague who had previously spread rumors. Emily told everyone about you, about being your son. It was quite the revelation. Lucas's heart stopped for a moment. He felt betrayed and exposed. How could Emily do this without speaking to him first? He felt a burning anger and the need to confront her again. But as he walked toward Emily's office, another emotion began to form within him. Relief. Lucas realized that by revealing the truth, Emily was exposing herself to judgment and criticism. She had sacrificed her pride and status to clear his name and to bring transparency to the situation. Somehow, this made him feel less alone, less isolated. Her courage in admitting her mistakes publicly touched something inside him. As he arrived at Emily's office door, Lucas stopped and took a deep breath before knocking. Come in, said Emily's tired voice from the other side. Lucas entered and found Emily sitting at her desk, her eyes red and weary. Lucas, she began, but he raised his hand to stop her. I know what you did, said Lucas, trying to control his emotions. And honestly, I felt betrayed at first. But now I understand you did it for me. Emily nodded, tears silently streaming down her face. I knew I had to be honest, Lucas. I couldn't let you carry this burden alone. I wanted to show everyone that I'm trying to change." Lucas took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his own words. "I still can't forgive you for what happened in the past, for what you did. But I see that you're trying, and that means something to me." Emily sobbed, trying to maintain composure. "I don't expect you to forgive me now, Lucas. I just want a chance to prove I can be a better person, a better mother." Lucas stepped closer to the desk and extended his hand. "Let's take it one step at a time. I accept that you're my biological mother. Let's see where this leads us." Emily grasped Lucas's hand, feeling a wave of hope and gratitude. "I promise I'll do everything I can to regain your trust." "Thank you, Lucas. Thank you for giving me this chance." Lucas nodded, feeling that this was the beginning of a long journey. He knew there were still difficult paths ahead, filled with ups and downs, but he was willing to try. As he left Emily's office, he felt a lightness he hadn't felt in a long time. There was a sense of relief, a possibility of healing. As he walked back to his workstation, Lucas noticed his co-workers now viewed him differently. Some greeted him with a nod, others with an encouraging smile. He knew their attitudes might change again, but for now, he felt accepted. Emily, in turn, felt a renewed determination. She knew that regaining Lucas's trust would be a long and complicated process, but she was committed. She also knew she needed to change the company's culture, making the environment more welcoming and fair for everyone. The first step had been taken, and now she was ready to move forward, with Lucas by her side. Finally, Lucas felt proud to have given his biological mother a chance. Not for what she had done in the past, but for what she was becoming. And this small step was the beginning of a great path of overcoming and triumph for both. Emily was nervous as she approached the house of John and Martha. She had been invited to a special lunch to celebrate her union with Lucas, but the anxiety consumed her. She had never attended such an intimate and emotionally charged event. The car stopped in front of the modest but welcoming house, and Emily took a deep breath before getting out. Lucas met her at the door, offering an encouraging smile. "They're eager to get to know you better. It'll be all right." Emily nodded, trying to hide her nervousness. As she entered, she was greeted by Martha, a woman with a gentle gaze and a warm smile. "Welcome, Emily," said Martha, embracing her warmly. "We're very happy you're here." John appeared soon after, offering a firm handshake. "It's a pleasure to have you with us, Emily. Make yourself at home." The lunch was served in the dining room, a simple but delicious meal prepared with much care. Emily was touched by the hospitality and love emanating from John and Martha. They treated her with a kindness she rarely experienced, making her feel part of the family. During the meal, they discussed various topics, carefully avoiding painful subjects. Emily was surprised to find herself relaxed, laughing at the stories and anecdotes shared around the table. Lucas, sitting beside her, seemed happy and relieved to see his biological mother and adoptive parents getting along. After lunch, Martha invited Emily upstairs to Lucas's room. "I want to show you something," she said, with a twinkle in her eye. Emily followed her, curious and slightly apprehensive. In the room, Martha opened a large photo album and began showing pictures of Lucas as a child. "He was always a joyful boy," said Martha, with a nostalgic smile. "These are photos of him in the first years after the adoption. He brought so much joy to our lives." Emily looked at the photos, feeling a pang in her heart. Seeing images of Lucas growing up happy and loved was a mix of pain and relief. "He's an incredible man," said Emily, her voice choked. "You did a wonderful job." Martha closed the album and looked directly at Emily. "I know what you went through, Emily. I know the story with your stepfather. Lucas knows too. And I want you to know that you're not alone." Martha's words broke the last emotional barriers for Emily. She began to cry, sobbing uncontrollably. Martha held her tight, embracing her firmly. "You're now part of our family. You're no longer alone. Money and power bring many things, but you need love. You need a real family." Emily clung to Martha, overwhelmed by emotions she couldn't control. "Thank you, Martha. I don't know how to thank you. This means so much to me." Martha pushed her back slightly, looking into her eyes. "No one should go through what you did, but you're strong. And now you have a family that loves you." Lucas appeared at the door, watching the scene. He approached slowly and, without a word, enveloped Emily and Martha in a tight hug. Emily felt the warmth and acceptance in their arms, and for a moment, everything seemed possible. That hug not only symbolized their union as a family, but also marked the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. Emily felt that despite the challenges they would still face, she was ready to build new bridges and strengthen the bonds with Lucas and her new family. If you were moved by Emily and Lucas's journey and believe in the power of forgiveness and redemption, don't forget to share this story with your friends and family. Subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories of overcoming and transformation. Leave your comment on what you thought about the trajectory of these characters and how it touched your heart. Together, we can spread messages of hope and love to